Greetings, Shaman King fans, and welcome to another episode of What's the Difference, the Shaman King edition, where I compare a given media's various different adaptations, namely the Shaman King manga's two anime adaptations, the 2001 anime and the 2021 anime. And up until this point, there has been very little to compare as things have diverged fairly greatly. But it all really comes down to the fact that over the course of the Shaman fight, Hao has grown insanely powerful and has been harvesting various souls and spiritual energy to just go in and take the Great Spirit for himself. However, the two anime adaptations go in different directions ultimately. Whereas with the newer anime that is based off of the manga, they continue on with the Shaman fight despite the fact that Hao has become so powerful he really doesn't even need to compete. It's basically all a formality at this point. Whereas in the original anime, Hao just decides to go in and take the Great Spirit. He decides to forgo the formalities and just go for it, as he has the power to just take it for himself and no one can really stop him. Both options are actually a little bit in line with each other ultimately. But our current comparison comes by way of the fact that in the manga and newer anime, Yo has died and gone to hell in order to gain enough power to gain one of the elemental spirits with which he will go after Hao before he's able to fully integrate with the Great Spirit and become the Shaman King to stop him dead in his tracks. But today we will also be looking at a somewhat similar situation in terms of the original anime. So I'm picking up where I left off with the original anime for the most part, or at least talking about the episodes in full, picking up with episode 60 of the 2001 anime, Friends. I should clarify, titled Friends. And previously I talked about this episode because this is the one where Ren had been fatally injured. Faust and the others desperately were trying to save them, and Lyser comes in and manages to help out everyone, essentially redeeming himself in the eyes of his allies. But I never discussed some of the other plots going on in this episode, and that's essentially Anna gaining newfound power in order to take down Hao. We also have Yo facing off with Team Hanagumi, which I'll be skimming over because that's something I can reference later down the line with a particular moment in the manga. You have Hao slowly making his way towards the Great Spirit. Yo ends up beating Team Hanagumi, meeting up with Silva and Caleb, and Anna retrieves the power to hopefully be able to deal with Hao. Unfortunately, Tamao does not get a big cool moment in most of the shaman activities towards the finale. I mean, she doesn't really get much of that in the newer anime or in the manga either, but she at least tries a little bit harder. Now we jump over to episode 61, Eternal Farewell, where Hao is approaching the Great Spirit, and Yo and Silva and Caleb essentially have to make their way as close as they can towards the Great Spirit, which is a situation that also happens in the manga, but in a different capacity. Basically, Yo needing to overcome something in order to make his way to the Great Spirit. And Yo finally makes his way towards Hao, and Yo ends up doing battle with Hao, while Yo's friends are trying to make their way towards the Great Spirit. And whereas Yo was taken down by the leader of Gandhara in order to send him to hell to train, we have Hao literally reaching within Yo and removing his soul from his body and just eating that soul. Nom nom nom, good soul. Tastes like an edible. And then we switch over to the next episode where, Yo's grandma and grandpa have sensed that Yo has essentially died or disappeared. In episode 62, Die Collision, and whereas all of Yo's friends end up, experiencing a near-death experience as well in order to train in hell, we have this very dramatic moment where it's just like, oh no, Yo has died. Which, I mean, at least it doesn't treat death as something you can just come back for at any moment, as long as you have a shaman who actually knows the technique. That's kind of the purpose of the current story arc within the manga, where it's how going around taking out anyone who could revive any dead ally, but how sees it more as, well, the person Yo Asakura never actually existed. You know, he was a part of me. I just returned that soul to where it belonged. Not necessarily something to be sad about, which, of course, Yo's friends would naturally disagree with, and thus a battle ensues, but we won't be getting into that. We're more so dwelling on the core of the comparison to the current newest episode of the newer anime, where Yo goes through hell in order to train, grow, and develop. In the original anime, you had Yo plunging into the depths of Hao's psyche, slowly being absorbed, well, back into what originally created him, I guess you could say. But as Yo, merges more and more with Hao, he experiences more of Hao's memory. And a lot of the skepticism he was constantly surrounded by, those who saw him as a monster just because of his abilities, despite the fact that he was constantly trying his best to help. Meanwhile, Amidamaru is trying his best in order to reach out for you. It gets very existential. I mean, you could technically call this a form of hell, honestly. It's within this mindscape you have Amidamaru trying his damnedest to get in contact with Yo. Now we jump over to episode 63, The Place Where I Belong. Everyone's still trying their best to take down Hao. It's a very long battle, and then eventually Amidamaru is able to kind of break through to Yo, and thus Yo's spirit returns to his body, despite by all accounts it not being something that should be possible. And thus Yo returns to the fray in order to try to take down Hao. And that's essentially the parallel in how technically in the original anime Yo goes through hell. It's just more metaphorical, as he was being plunged within the depths of Hao's soul and essentially integrated with it. Not literally being sent to hell, which is just in the Great Spirit. Now, in terms of the manga and newer anime, we pick up with Volume 27, Chapter 236, Not Quite a Family Reunion, and Episode 42 of the 2021 anime, A Great Trial, where Yo has unveiled his new technique and is fighting against his ancestor, who has bound himself to hell because he feels bad about defeating his ancestor. And Yo likes his ancestor. He's just like, he's a good guy deep down. And Yoken is in such a daze from being in hell for so long, he's kind of lost himself. And Yo basically has to kind of try to overcome a lot of Yoken's technique, but Yo manages to overcome it at almost every turn. So Yoken unleashes the power that was able to defeat Hao. And you have Masamune off in the distance watching, seeing Yoken unleash the power, and getting to see that Yo has really grown a lot since the last time he'd seen him. It sucks that they left out the skeleton captain of the train that just rides throughout the Great Spirit. It's a cool imagery, but Masamune can't stay in hell for too long because he kind of be absorbed into it and essentially become a lost soul. I love that. Masamune taking pride in how much Yo has grown, and Yo might be able to keep his promise about summoning Matsumone's soul back from the afterlife. And you get to see the flexibility of Yo's new oversoul, and you get to have a little bit of Yo explaining why he chose a swan, because he's always taken an interest in Swan because of things associated with his mom and dad, which I think is a very sweet kind of direction for why Yo's oversoul ended up this way. There's a personal sentiment attached to it. While Yo's Byakko isn't my favorite looking oversoul, I always did appreciate the sentiment behind it, just because, Yo doesn't really talk too much about his mom and his dad, honestly. So having it be something so sentimental is actually kind of nice. And Yo gets the opportunity to show off a little bit. And then we enter into chapter 237, What's Wrong with a Memorial? They cut out Yoken kind of understanding the function of the Byakko, but they also cut out explaining some of the details of the Byakko too. How the Futsuno Mitama is about protection while the Harasame is about attacking. That's why the Byakko looks the way it does. But Yoken is still impressed all the same. And so they surge forward and battle it out with some cool choreography, honestly. Just because Yo's Byakko has a lot of fun versatility. And so Yoken delivers his finishing blow, which Yo is ready to take on because, I mean, if he can't overcome the power that defeated Hao 500 years ago, then there's no point. You get the ultimate technique, and Yo manages to block it very handily, delivering a massive blow to the Tengu, destroying it. And Yoken notices that Yo's ability was the power of purification, and Yo just wants to have a nice little chat with his ancestors. Meanwhile, Sati is explaining to Ryu about the 5 spirits, which is the only option for defeating Hao, one of which is the spirit of fire which Hao commands, but it's something that he'll have to give up. This is the ultimate mission of the Gandahara, but they're being spied on by a patch. Then we jump into chapter 238, Remain Neutral, and the patch officiant reveals himself, Namari. He's the patch officiant of the Gandahara, and he says he's here to completely remain neutral. They do cut out a lot of the Gandahara being a little bit on guard around the patch. Is an unfortunate thing to leave out just because not having the Gandahara's perspective, the rest of them, their perspective, it makes it kind of feel like they're just there as window dressing, which, I mean, they are that in the manga as well. But you wonder why they don't step in when the Namari gets real close to Sati, basically kind of threatening her. They also toned down Ryu's retaliation. In the manga, he actually goes in to attack Namari, which is something that the rest of the Gandahara were actually at the ready to do if it came to that. But it's shown that that wouldn't have been wise with Namari's Cobra spirit. They also cut out from the anime Namari explaining his Cobra spirit, Red Robe, basically just naming it. Namari is surprised that Sati actually ended the life of Yo, but he still is essentially telling Sati not to start and don't start none or there will be none. And also that Team X2 no longer exists, so the next fight will be Tathagata versus the Kabbalah, which takes Ryu off guard. It's just like, what happened to Team X2? Jump ahead a little bit to chapter 239, A Great Trial, with Ryu wondering what that means. And of course, here comes, Team Moon? Or Team Tsukigumi? Or just Tsukigumi, because I just call them Team Whatever Team. They confront Ryu. We then jump over to volume 28, chapter 240, Separated in Hell. Mostly just to follow Ryu's storyline, being confronted by Team Tsukigumi, where he's basically being mocked about the fact that all his friends are essentially dead. All of the 5 warriors. And Ryu's just like, shut your trap. And Ryu's about to lose his temper again. They're essentially just trying to provoke Ryu. And it's working. He's ready to commit a murder. And Sati's not having it. Still acting as a bit of a teacher for Ryu. Only for that to essentially get her killed. This moment is a lot more brutal in the anime rather than the manga, which is very rare. It really took me off guard. Then enter into chapter 241, just for Ryu's scream about the death of Lady Sati. We then jump back to volume 27, chapter 238, for Yoken's conversation with Yo, and him coming to terms with the fact that he's dead, and basically how he's fallen into self-pity for the past 500 years. And Yo doing his best to comfort his ancestor. And Yoken's just glad he was able to have children before he died. And weirdly enough, he has to ask Yo about it. Do you have any children? And essentially we get it very implied that he and Anna did the do before the shaman fight to make sure that he would have an heir for the future. That way the Asakura bloodline would essentially live on. But Yoken is informed about the resurrection of Hao and how he's Yo's twin brother. But Yoken knows that defeating him will just lead to another reincarnation, so there are 2 alternatives. Either extinguish Hao's soul, which Yo's not about, or go with the second option, which they don't talk about, but it's essentially to rehabilitate Hao. which is something that you knew Yo would go for. And Yokin thinks about Masamune when he talks to Yo. They do cut out Yokin addressing Amidamaru directly, just basically thanking Amidamaru for his services, which is unfortunate they left out. I like the fact that Yokin actually acknowledges Amidamaru as a great protector of Yo. But then he goes on to talk about the family crest that they have. How it was created by How to be a pentagram for the Omyodo, but it was recreated into the shape of a tree. A symbol of change. And then Yokin is destroyed, because this is hell, and it's a place where souls are destroyed. Mercilessly. Cruelly. Go over to chapter 239. Yo is befuddled because he didn't really expect that to happen. Hell, I didn't expect that to happen. But it's these creatures' duty to, destroy souls. And Yo instantly goes for some retribution because he wants to know if there's a way to fix Yokin's soul. This ends up being the most intense you see Yo. And unfortunately, there's no way to bring Yokin back. And so Yo ends this demon, and Yo's just sad to have lost someone. But he has no time to mourn because this is hell. And there are plenty more demons where that came from. It's their job to destroy souls. There's no time to rest in hell. And so Yo will have no choice but to fight so he isn't extinguished, so he can get strong to fortify his own will. And then we pick up with Team the Ren. And things are a little bit tense because Horo has been keeping secrets, Chocolove has been keeping secrets, and Ren wants answers from Chocolove. What is these 5 warriors thing? And Team Wisdom Kings of Gandahara show up to answer their question, but mostly through demonstration of sending them to hell. And then we head back over to volume 28, chapter 240, where Ren wakes up in hell, Horo wakes up in hell, Lyserg wakes up in hell. Although Lyserg, because of the way he died, he doesn't actually know what's going on. And he is accosted by a demon. Then jump over to 241, a good woman, where he's doing his best to get away from this demon, but he can't summon any of his spirits for some reason. And he is getting manhandled, complete with getting his arm cut off. It's very brutal. Again, more brutal than the manga, honestly. Again, taking me off guard because I'm just like, that's weird. We then head back to chapter 240 with Chocolove in hell again. But hey, Master Ava is here. And Ava seems to know a thing or two about what Gandahara's plan actually is. That everybody has gone to their own personal hells in order to, conquer it and work their way up and return to the world of the living. And while Chocolove is confident about what he can do here since he's been through this already, he's not sure about Ren and Horo. But Ava has made arrangements. He knows how to work the angles here. He's worked with Gandahara for a while now, because he's participated in the shaman fight before, 1,000 years ago, only to lose his life to How. They do cut out from the manga to the newer anime, the fact that Ava knows when Team Gandahara was formed, which was 2,500 years ago, and that one of their group actually became Shaman King all the way back then. But Ava thinks of when he was killed by How, that How was dangerous, enigmatic, cold-hearted, nothing but contempt. But his trip down memory lane gives him back his human appearance. Newer anime also cuts out Chocolove thinking how cool Ava looks, but Chocolove's master had told him that he looked like Ava. Yeah, they look nothing alike. But Ava knows that there's a lot that needs to be done because this plan is their last hope. So he's gonna send Chocolove into the depths of hell, and he'll have to fight his way out. Ava's got a lot of work ahead of him. We even find out that he's been working with Masamune as well, and Masamune is involved in this plan too. We then head over to chapter 241, where we have Anahol just kind of, basking in his defeat of everyone. Well, thanks to Pochi, Tamao, and Manta were able to be saved, but Lyserg, Marco, and Jean have died. They do cut out Anol smoking too, but that's a little bit more common. And Anol is just embracing the power he was given by Hao, and he just needs to dispose of their body. And like I said much earlier in this video, where Tamao has a moment where she just basically told, stay behind, look after Mikihisa who was injured, stay out of the fight. Here she actually tries to confront Anol in order to protect the bodies of the X-Law. She wants to resurrect them using either Faust or Sati. But Anol tells her not to even really try. She doesn't have enough strength. She'll just end up dying and no one can help her. And, Hao's teammates have probably killed off anyone who could resurrect them anyway. And Tamao can't really believe it because, a lot of Hao's followers have been defeated by Yo's friends before. It shouldn't be possible. But Anol, is just mad because he feels like Tamao is insulting the Star Festival, and Manta even gets a kick for good measure. Anol is really drinking the Kool-Aid on the power that Hao has given him, and Anol is just a jerk, ready to kill Tamao, show off his power. But Tamao is not ready to give in just yet. She wants to fight for her friends. It's very sweet. It is unfortunate the newer anime cuts out Pochi and Kochi actually coming to Tamao's defense, giving Tamao at least a little bit more of a fight, but it all ends the same. With Anol's spirit being beheaded because an angel has come to Tamao's defense. Marco still lives. Unfortunately, the shot that they give him in the anime far less cool than what they show in the manga. We then go to chapter 242, Ave Marco. Anol doesn't understand how Marco's alive because I'm pretty sure I pierced your heart. But the wound was closed by Jean. She managed to heal him before the explosion so that he was, I guess, he was in the process of being healed, so he had no clip or something on, or no damage while being healed or something along those lines. He was still injured by the explosion, but it didn't kill him, which is why I'm still kind of confused. I mean, if the explosion didn't kill him, why did it kill Jean and Lyserg? How were their bodies kept intact? I'd understand if they were pierced by shrapnel or something like that, but their bodies still look pretty pristine, no worse for wear than Marco's. And Anol goes on the attack, battling it out with Marco's angel, especially now that the angel Marco has been powered up thanks to being resurrected, and he slices and dices Anol's spirit. Marco has gained a great amount of power, but instead of killing Anol, Marco's gonna make a deal. Take me to Sati and you won't be killed. Unfortunately, that won't be possible, as Hao shows up and says Sati is dead. Now nobody can come back to life, not even the 5 warriors. And Marco is taken off guard by Hao's presence. Anol gets the upper hand. They cut out Anol taking Marco's gun though, but because Marco's wound is freshly healed, he's still in a lot of pain. And Hao's only here because, X2 destroyed his base, which Luquise thought was foolish and reckless. But Marco still wants to ask if there's at least still someone who knows resurrection, and Luquise does admit there is someone, and Hao says, well, yeah, it's Faust. He managed to master the ability of resurrection. But Faust is in the same place as Sati, so he's probably going to die one way or the other. But Marco, he's learned to believe in hope. Though Hao says he will die, his last act is to summon his angel in the form of a car in order to get the bodies of Jean and Lyserg to safety. There's still hope. And I really do love this end screen in the anime where Marco is ready to give it his all to keep Hao from winning. Not through sacrifice and the death of others, but believing in the future, which is such a sweet direction to take Marco's character. Marco's finally started to believe in goodness. And that's the end of this comparison. Now, I must admit, the drama of the original anime of having Yo be absorbed by Hao, pretty interesting, pretty intense. It's going off of the fact that Hao has said in the past that Yo is actually just a piece of his soul, half of his soul. And that's the anime going full circle with that plot point. And the whole you go to hell, you gain more power and stuff has, become essentially a plot point. But you gotta have someone who can actually resurrect you around, and that can be a little bit hard to come by when there's only 3 people around on the good side who can do it. Originally, they thought it was only 2, and they were on the outs with the X-Laws for a while there, but having Faust with the ability, there's still hope. So at least there's still a sense of tension, because it's just like, they know it's just like, oh, you have white mages who know resurrection spells? Okay, so we just have to kill them and y'all are just stuck dead. So I gotta say, it's good that there's at least tension in the fact that it's just like, if you don't get these people to those who can heal and resurrect, you're shit out of luck. But tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you prefer the tension of Yo being absorbed into Hao's soul? Or do you like the tension of 5 of our main characters all being dead and a quest to take down the white mages, those who are able to resurrect, being in motion by Hao to keep all of the potential people who could stop him permanently dead while they're off training in the afterlife? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you like this video, please feel free to subscribe for more. Or don't. I am not your daddy, but I still love you like one. And until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I hope to see you in the next video. Until then, bye-bye.